Hi once again. Welcome back to Smart Contract Labs. So in today's video, we are going to design a smart contract for insurance system. So let's see what are the different features we are going to implement in this smart contract. So this is the insurance system features that I've mentioned here. So there are basically four things that we need to do in this insurance system. First one is policy creation, policy activation, deactivation, then policy payment and inquiry. So let's understand what is insurance system. An insurance system is a mechanism designed to provide financial protection or compensation against specified risks or event in exchange for the payment of premium. That means you pay the premium amount and in return of it, you are getting the policies of financial protection or compensation. For having the insurance policy, first you need to create policy with some insurance company, and then after, if you want to buy some policy, then you need to pay premium amount and then decide for the details as well, coverage amount and duration. And you can also deactivate your insurance if you want after certain amount of time, and you can also claim on the basis of some events or some risks mishappen in your life, so on. So you already know about the insurance system. So what we are going to do in today's lecture, we will design a smart contract for insurance system and implement all this basic functionality that involve the creation of policies, activation, deactivation, payment of premium, and then inquiry about the user can also inquire, send the inquiry for asking the different policy they have, right? So let's start the coding part. I hope you understand what we are going to do in today's lab. So let's open the remix ID. Just on Google, you just click on write down as remix ID Ethereum and just click on the very first link. And this is a dashboard of a remix IDE. And what we are going to do, we just click on Smart Contract Lab folder, and here we create a new file and name it as insurance system. So like we always follow the same steps while we do coding in Solidity language. That first we specify the two important information, license identifier and compiler version, and then so I'm going to copy both these two information to the new file. Oh, extremely sorry. Let me copy here and paste it here. Right, so I have copied both these important information in our new file, that is insurance system. First one specify the license identifier, and second line specify the compiler version. So we are going to use 0.8.2 for compiler version in this code. This is the latest one. Now next step is to create a contract. For creating a contract, write down the keyword as contract and then write down the name of the contract. So I'm taking the name of the contract as insurance and then just define its scope. And this is your first task. So we have created the insurance contract. Now under this contract, first we always declare all the variables that we need to define our functions, or right. So we need a policy, right? So for a policy, we have different attributes. To declare a policy, we have different attributes like your policy ID and the address of the insured person, and then premium amount you want to pay for that policy, start date and date, whether that policy is active or not, right? So there are so many attributes associated with a policy. So that's why instead of creating a separate individual variable, we will rather use a struct, because this is a data structure in which we can store the multiple data types together under one name. So name it as policy, right? And just declare all the attributes of the policy that just we have discussed. First one is your ID, second one is your insured address, and then your premium amount that This policy is required to be paid by you, and then coverage amount this policy offers, and then start date, and then end date. And then we must have a Boolean variable to check if this policy is active or not, right? So this is how so these are the following attributes associated with the policy. And if you think of more, you can add it in your code, right? So till now, these are enough, I guess. Now, whenever this is the policy we have created, now I want to store this policy along with the ID. That means this is the ID, or this is the policy ID, and we have this policy policy details like the ID, insured, premium, coverage. So I want a mapping for this. So I need a mapping for storing all this information in the form of key value pair. So first key is your UN, and next value is your policy. That is the structure. And I just make this variable as public and name it as policies. Next, we will create a policy counter to calculate that how many policies we have in this insurance systems. And we always keep track of this policy counter when we create the policy. So here we have a policy counter. Let's keep this variable as public so that we can access this information as well. Yes, so here we have created a mapping in which we are storing the policy related informations and name it as policies. And we have declared one variable called as policy counter to keep track of how many policies we have. Next, for storing or for logging the detail of a policy whenever it is created by the owner, or the premium is paid by the user. So we need events. So how we can create events in Solidity? So the syntax is first the keyword event, and the name of the event is, for example, I'm taking first for policy created like this. And whenever we are creating a policy, we have to give so many information. Like first one is your ID, second one is your address, and the third one is your premium. Fourth one is your coverage, like I specify the structure as well. And then start date, and then end date. Like this. So this is how I have created the event, so that I use this event and store all this information in it. Next, I would like to create an event for the premium. So whenever user pay the premium amount, we will emit this event for storing all these details. So first one is your policy ID. Second one is your address of the payer. Oh, I missed one comma here. Next, amount that user is going to pay for the premium. So this is so these are the two events I have created for storing the information whenever a user creating a new policy, or whenever they pay premium amount. And we will emit this. So once we have created the event, you can use it by using the emit, and you can store all the details in it. Next, let's work on the function. I guess all the initial tasks are done, and let's move forward and work on the function. So first function is to create a policy. create policy, and here whenever you are creating a policy, you have to supply all this information and update this mapping as well as update this policy counter. So these are the tasks that we want to do inside this create policy function. So first, pass all the local variables here. First one is your insured, and ID will automatically take as 0, 1, 2, 3, right, by maintaining the details in this policy or by using this policy counter. And if you want, you can use the counter, a separate counter for it, but I'm going to use this policy counter. And then next is your premium amount. Then next is your coverage. So this is how the owner can create the new policy by supplying all this information. And one more information, sorry, these are all local variables, so keep name separate from the original one. And then next one is your duration. Number of durations you want this policy. What is the duration of this policy? And let me I forgot one thing. Make this function as public, and then here we are. We are under the definition of the function. Now, next, whenever we are creating the policy by passing all these parameters, so we have to check them first. That premium amount should be greater than 0. It should not be equal to the 0, and in fact, the coverage amount should be greater than 0 as well. And number of days you are creating the policy should be greater than 0 as well, right? So these are the following checks we need before we will create a policy by updating by supplying all this information, updating this and policy counter. Let's do this. So first we always check the conditions and constraint by using required statement. So first condition is on your premium amount. So your premium amount, if it is greater than 0, then it's fine. You can execute the further statements of the function. Otherwise, you have to display an error message that premium must be greater than 0. It's done. Now, next statement is about the coverage. We have a same. If coverage is greater than 0, then it's fine. Otherwise, you have to display error message that coverage amount must be greater than 0. And third is about the duration. So duration, I take this, sorry. Duration, it should be greater than 0. Number of days you are creating this policy, so duration must be, you have to display error message that duration must be greater than 0. Done. I have specified all the 3 informations that I needed at the starting to be checked before we are going to execute this function. Right. Next state is to initialize all the variables that we have declared inside this structure, because this is how you can create the policy. You have to supply all the initial the values to all the variables. Right. So ID, I told you I'll keep the ID as policy counter, and then starting its value is 0. So ID is 0. And insured, I took this parameter, and then premium coverage, I took them as well as a local parameter as an argument from as arguments from for this function. Now for next is your start dates. Let's declare this variable. So the start date should be equal to the at the time you are creating this block, and that information is stored on block.timestamp global variable. So I'm using this variable to initialize the start date. Now next we have the end date. So end date should be created on the basis of the start date plus the number of durations. So durations we have provided like for about 10 days. So you have to convert into number of days by multiplying by 1 days like this. So this is how you can create it. and that's a semicolon. So this is how you can create end date. So these two parameters are done, and active should be false in these when you are creating this policy. Should be true. That means you have to initialize the active with the true when you are creating the policy. Now time is to initialize all these variables with all these values that have passed as arguments or these information, right? So what we do, we create a variable that is of structure type, and I'm keeping it as memory so that we can store this information locally, temporary basis. And so this is the local variable I've created, and I use this structure name, and I'm going to store all the structure information in this new policy. Now this new policy I will use to update this policy's mapping. So first parameter that I'm going to pass here is the ID. ID I specify by using the policy counter. So I use this policy counter and pass it as a parameter. Second is your insured and address. I took this as a argument here. So insured. Next parameter we have is premium. So yes, again, I took it as a local parameter. So premium. Next we have coverage. So pass coverage as. Next is your start date, then end date, and then active. So I have updated the start and end date. You just pass as it is. Start date. Sorry, it should be start date, and then end and date, and then true. Last value should be true. That is, this policy is active now. Last value should be true. Now it's done. Now I want to update the mapping. So the mapping name is policies, and here the first is your uint, that is your index value, and here I'm using the policy counter as an index value, and next is your structure type, right? So whenever I after equal to, it should be the value, and within this square bracket you will give the key values of int type that I took as a policy counter, and the policy is your value. So I'll have to give the policy here, and that is nothing is a new policy. This is the local variable in which I have stored all these information. When it is done, just update the policy counter by 1, that we have a 1 policy now, policy counter as ++, and it's done. Now, this is how we have created the policy. Now, one more thing for the newly created policy, you have to update all this information in this event. So how you can call the event? You can call the event by using emit, word, and the name of your policy created. The name of this event is policy created, and here you can pass all this information. But you have to pass them as a new policy, because all these are parameter of this local variable. So new policy dot id, then new policy dot insured, and then new policy dot premium, then new policy dot coverage, then new policy dot start date, and then new policy dot end date. So this is how you can call the event, and you can store the newly created policies information in this event by using this emit. Now, why we are using this new policy? Because this is the name of the policy in which we have stored all this information that we took as arguments, or for these the calculated one as well. And then we have updated the mapping, and just increment the counter and just emit the sorry, just remove this. Now let's see. So here they are this undeclared identifier because we have created this identifier under this. So just reinitialize it like this. That's all. Unit, it's done. And now this should be, let me change this one then. Otherwise, I need to change all of them. It should be a new policy B. Now it's done. All um, all errors are gone. Now next function is to check whether your policy is active or not. So function is a very simple one because we have created active variable here. By using this variable, you can check whether it's active or not. So the name of this is policy active. And here you can pass the ID of underscore ID. And because here we are just accessing the information, so that's why it should be public view. It should be of view type function. So whenever you are just reading the state variables, you are not modifying it. You have to keep that function as view, and it should return true or false value depending upon that policy is active or not. Now next, it return. So we have a mapping in which we have stored this information, policies, and here just pass the ID that you took as a parameter, and you can check is dot and just return this value active. So if it is true, that means policy is active, otherwise policy is deactivated. Now get policy details. So this is also a small function, get policy details. So in this function, we also pass a ID, the ID of the policy, and it should be of view types as well, because here we are just accessing the information and displaying on the screen returns. And what it's going to return, it should return a policy type, a structure type, policy memory, and just define its scope and then return. And we have stored all this information in a mapping. So policies, and here just pass the ID, and you just need to display this complete information. You don't want to access the particular member, but you need all members here because you need all information. Now next is to cancel your policy. So for canceling your policy, you have to just change your active state to the false one. So this is how you can cancel your policy. Cancel policy, and here you just need to pass your ID. Sorry, UNT ID. Now this should be of public type as well. So here, first we need a required statement to check if you are the owner of this policy or not, because only owner is able to deactivate the insurance. So we have an address called insured. I'm accessing this information and I am checking it with the message who is calling this function by using the global parameter message dot center. And if it is equal, then it's fine. Otherwise, you have to display the error message, you are not the owner of this policy, like this, and just terminate this. Now next is if you want to cancel a property is already in the deactivated state, so there is no point of it. So just check this information as well by using again the same mapping, policies and ID, right? And dot active, just check dot active. If it is true, that means that that policy is in active state, so we have to deactivate it. Otherwise, if it is false, that means it is already deactivated. There is no need to deactivate again. So policy is not active. display the message that policy is not active. It's done. Now we have checked both the conditions. Now just do this simple thing, access this policy's ID, and just update this variable as false. This is how you have deactivated the policy having a particular ID. So this function is done. Now next function is to pay premium amount. Function pay premium, and here you just need a ID of your policy, and just make this function as public, and it should be payable as well because we are going to transfer certain amount. Right now here, whenever you are making a payment, we have to check your message.value should be greater than your premium amount. Otherwise, it will display error message. And you also check whether for the policy that you are going to pay, it's active or not. So let's check both this information first. So by using the required statement. So first required statement is to check whether your policy is active or not. So policies, here you can pass the ID dot active. If it is true, then it is active. Otherwise, policy is not active. There is no need to pay the premium amount. It's fine. Now, next required statement checks for the premium amount. The amount you are transferring as a premium amount. It's same as the premium amount is you have agreed when you have created this policy, right? So we can check by using this policies mapping, and here you can pass the ID as well, and just access the premium. It should be equal to message.value, the value you are supplying while calling this function. If it is equal, then it's fine. Then you have to, otherwise you have to display error message, incorrect premium amount. Done. So now it's time to transfer your address. So here address payable recipient. This should be the address of your insurance company, and here you just passing from the message.sender who is executing this function dot transfer message.value, your premium amount. So let's take your recipient address in this address payable recipient is right, done. And then you just transfer this. Let's see. There's no need for this information, I guess. You just transfer the amount as recipient dot transfer message dot like this. You just transfer this information to your recipient or company's insurance, and just execute your event. It is premium paid, and you can pass all this information. So first one is your ID you could took from as a user. Then your payer is your payer is recipient. No, your payer is message.sender who is executing this function, and your amount is message.value. Yes, so it's done. So that's all for this insurance system. And we have created so many functions, one for pay premium, cancel policy, get policy details. Is policy active? It's looking pretty good. Let's go to the compiler and compile this first. So we have one. Did you mean undeclared? Did you mean new policy? Where it is? Yes, I have changed that new policy in line number 36. New policy. Mm, the name is this NEWPOLICY NEWPO. Yo, here. Here I missed. Oh, new policy, and that's all. Okay, then just execute it. Now it is compiled successfully. Now just deploy it. I'm using first as a owner, just deploy it. So it is deployed. Let me scroll it up. And it is deployed. Transaction is successful. Just click on your deployed contract. So first we are going to create a policy, new policy, and just add your insured address, create policy. So I'm taking second address, your insured address, copy here, and make sure you're executing this function from the first one, that is the owner. I just copied, paste here. The address I have copied, and amount that I'm supplying here is 1V, and the coverage amount is also 1V, and the duration I'm taking as 1 for the sake of simplicity. Let's create this policy. Yes, policy is created. Now just check, get the policy details by supplying the 0 here. So I'm getting all this information, that address is this, and these are these for one, these are the this is a decimal representation, and the active is true, right? Is policy active? Just check it is active or not. This is true, that means it is active. For getting all the information, you can check the policies as well. Premium is 1, coverage is 1, start date is this, and date is this, right? Now next task is to policy counter. You can check it is 1. You can create one more policy for this user. So just copy this address and call this create policy again from this address. So I'm just all the rest of the information I'm keeping as same. So just update the address of for the new policy. So I'm just update the address and just create this policy. It is created. Now you can use the index 1 and check the information. Now this is the second address for 04AX. This is the second insured person, right? Policy counter is 2 now. Now if you want to cancel the policies, just write down the ID here, cancel the first policy. The transaction to the initial, you are not the owner. So only the owner can cancel this policy. So the owner is this one. So cancel this property policy. It is done now. Now, next is pay premium. So I can pay the premium for and I'm taking the owner address as the recipient address. So no, who is the owner of this policy? This one. And recipient address I'm providing as this one, the owner address, and this pay premium. So I have to supply the amount first, that is 1, and it is successful. So all functions are working fine. Thank you so much for your time. Have a nice day. Bye bye.